In the Indian city of Surat, another water usage issue can be observed. As well as overuse, our water is also threatened by pollution. The textile industry is responsible for 20% of global water pollution.
These women didn't need a report from the United Nations to reveal the scale of the world's water crisis. In West Africa's Ivory Coast, clean water is in scarce supply. Martine Touré says they should do something about it. We've had no water in the house for over a year. Every day we have to come here to collect water, and we're tired of it. The UN says more than a quarter of the world's population cannot find safe drinking water and warns the number of people lacking access will double by 2050.
3.6 billion people, nearly half the population of the world, don't have access to safe sanitation services.
Researchers say overconsumption and pollution are making the problem even worse. And since water treatment uses energy that's usually not renewable, that exacerbates the problem.
So you're not only contributing to water scarcity when you use water at home, you're also contributing to greenhouse gases and to climate change.
This is generally how we use fresh water around the world. Around 10% is used in private households, for showering, washing, drinking. Around 20% is used in industry, leaving 70% utilized in agriculture, giving it a major share of responsibility for the global water crisis. In recognition of the problem, the Egyptian government is trying out new approaches. For example, lining canals with concrete to minimize water loss and improve distribution.
The government implemented this project without carrying out proper studies. The intention was to channel water through the canals without wasting any of it. But my research has found many negative effects. Because the water is no longer seeping into the ground, soil salinity is rising and the groundwater level is sinking. Big agricultural businesses require a lot of water to grow large-scale crops. They use the water that should really be available to farmers in the Nile Delta. For example, to grow foodstuffs, such as wheat. We're basically exporting water.
Exporting food also exports the water used to produce it. This is termed a water footprint. To grow a kilo of strawberries, you need around 300 liters of water. A kilo of potatoes needs 120 liters. If those potatoes come from Egypt, the climate there means they need up to 420 liters of water per kilogram. The decisive factor is how the crops are irrigated. In Central Europe, rainwater largely does the job. In Egypt, on the other hand, irrigation is almost exclusively through human intervention. California is the largest producer of beef and dairy products in the United States. Here in the Imperial Valley, there are around 140,000 cattle on this farm alone. Almost half of California's water is used in the meat and dairy industry, mainly due to the water-intensive feed plant alfalfa.
So the question is what's the highest and best use of the water? I don't care to get into the politics of what's more important, but bias, because obviously I'm biased in farming, I think the highest best use for water is in agriculture first and foremost, because we share the fruits of that labor with everybody in the same community. And it will continue to get heavily contested, and that question will continue to be debated going forward.
Since the first signs of water scarcity, authorities, industry and farmers have been arguing over who should be saving water and how much. But so far the debate pays scant attention to one crucial issue: food. Animal-based foods require particularly large amounts of water. For a litre of milk, it's up to 1,000 litres. For a kilogram of cheese, it's 5,000 litres. And for a kilo of beef, as much as 15,000 litres of water. If cattle are exclusively fed instead of being put out to pasture, things get especially dramatic. This is because feedstuffs like alfalfa, soya and maize are usually artificially irrigated, a process requiring large quantities of water.
When you think about the production of cattle and the intensified nature and the way that we are producing cattle, that is a lot of energy, a lot of food, and a lot of water that we need to feed the cattle. Because we do not raise cattle on pasture, we have to feed them alfalfa as a grass substitute. That's the reason why alfalfa production has skyrocketed, because these are what is known as factory farmed cattle. And we should outlaw the growing of alfalfa in these desert and water shortage states.
The water cycle works like this. Water flows into the sea via rivers, evaporates, rains down again, and replenishes rivers, lakes, and groundwater. Over millions of years, water cycles have stabilized all over the world. The climate crisis is upsetting this balance. Glaciers are melting, water is evaporating faster, clouds are storing more water and dumping it in torrential downpours. The outcome? Floods instead of full groundwater reservoirs.